Welcome to the Witcher Lorecast, the show that explores the vast lore behind the Witcher games, show, and books. Witchers, welcome back to the Witcher Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here with a wonderful panel, some of our patrons this week, because it's the end of the month, and Toasty of Toasterburgville, Shire. Toasty, how you doing, man?
That's my new Discord name.
Did I just expand it from what it was before?
I can't make it any bigger. I just have to change it completely.
That's what I told her.
I've used the max amount of characters.
So welcome everybody to the Witcher Lorecast. Today we are discussing potential villains for the next Witcher game, because who doesn't love a good villain, right? Everybody loves a good villain. And I have our panel of patrons here to join us to share some of their ideas of who would be a really good villain. Toasty, do you have a favorite villain from the series so far? And I don't want to spend forever on this, but I'm just curious, who's your go-to bad dude, bad guy, bad group?
My go-to bad dude?
Yeah, who are you just they get under my skin?
The TV show Stranglemore, obviously.
There you go, Stranglemore, ultimate villain. Perfect. Well, let's introduce everybody, because this is going to be an awesome discussion. Ben of Temeria is back. Ben, welcome back to the show, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. Hey, I heard a little bird told me that you might be helping guest host next week's episode with my good buddy here, Toasty, because I'm going to be on vacation next week.
That I am, and I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Do you guys know what you're going to be talking about yet?
I know it's a monster.
Okay, so you're doing a bestiary or bestiary episode. Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. We also have Crow joining us again. Crow, welcome back.
Hey, good to be back.
Good to have you here, man. And then we also have Genesis. Genesis is joining us.
I am here.
You are. Welcome back. And Paul. Paul just showed up. Paul, welcome to the Witcher Lorecast. How's it going?
Not bad. How about you?
Good. We just started the episode. So we're discussing this week villains and your speculation, theories, wants, hopes, dreams, fears, maybe even about who would be the villain, or at least a primary villain in the next Witcher game. So I'm curious, who's just itching to get this off their chest? Who's I absolutely think that this would be an amazing villain. This is what I think is going to happen. Does anybody have anything? And everyone's I don't know yet. I don't know. I'm just coming up with answers as we're just spitballing here. Ben?
I mean, if we're staying on the continent, more than likely we'll probably deal with Nilfgaard again.
Do you think, okay, so Nilfgaard shows up, right? Because there's always political intrigue. There's always stuff going on with the kingdoms and with the empire. But in games like The Witcher 3, the primary villain was the Wild Hunt, right? That was
true.
That was the primary. Do you think that Nilfgaard will rise to a place where they take the mantle of primary villain in the story?
I mean, it's always a possibility. I mean, with the Witcher universe as a whole, it's kind of hard to say villain wise, because there's a bunch of more supernatural stuff into it. So I mean, I know me and Toasty talked about this before. Looked up the whole School of the Lynx thing, to where they went to a completely new continent. Right.
So what do you think that means?
New factions, possibly seeing maybe, I mean, I'm hoping it's the whole prequel route. I know everybody here is hoping for a sequel, but either way, I more than likely it's probably going to be a new faction as a whole, seeing as Witchers as the evil, Bon Evil, trying to destroy them, or we need to take their research, or just kind of how the Salamanders were in The Witcher 1.
So some a politically motivated group of some sort. But you're talking other continents. So if we move from where we are right now, where everything that we've had has happened on the continent, and we go, say, across the ocean or across who knows? Like Europe, Asia is technically the same continent, but there's a division there. Like, what if we go over the mountains to the east, and all of a sudden we're in a part of the world that nobody ever talks about, very few people ever travel to, and that's where they've set up. There could be different monsters. I mean, if there are people, you're going to have humans and elves and dwarves and other types of intelligent species with their own societies. Like, you have a lot of potential for all sorts of stuff. You think that there's going to be like a political group over there that's trying to take advantage of, I don't know, magic and what the Witchers know and, that kind of thing?
More than likely. I mean, there always is. There's always someone in power trying to get the weapons of destruction or just to be on top of everything. So if anything would happen, they have the knowledge or the means to do so.
If you were to flesh this out a little bit more, I mean, and from the background that we have in the continent, most of these factions are human based. There are some elven factions, but the ones who are most likely going to take advantage of the Witchers are going to be humans and mages, right? Mm-hmm. What would you design for what's going on this other place? Mm-hmm. Is it a group of like super powerful elven mages, or is it humans again? Or what would you like to see? Really strong gnomes. Like beefy Chad gnomes.
Gnomes would be interesting, but honestly, what I would really like to see is like an organization or a faction that consists of humans and elves, or humans and non-humans together, actually working together, trying to either like manipulate the Witchers or even like maybe kill them off or something like that.
That's a really interesting idea, because we would have a certain level of like, oh, they're all getting along, they must be good, right?
Right.
Like,
right.
They're working together.
Twist, they're trying to kill you.
Right. And no, they are just seeking power. And even though they get along multi-class and multi-faction and multi-race, maybe multiple different ways, they still have a pretty terrible agenda.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I could see that. Like, the Witcher world likes to tread the gray, right? Mm-hmm. So that makes you go, oh yeah, oh wait, I don't. Like, oh, they're likable, but can't stand for this. Toasty, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think that's likely?
I mean, I certainly hope if we go to a new location that we might find a region of the world that's less racist.
That would be cool. What about the rest of you guys? Do you have any thoughts on this? What do you think about a less racist but still evil faction? Do you think it's likely? Do you think it'd be cool?
I think a big part of the Witcher world is like the political tension and the racism, even if it's like, that's kind of something that everywhere has in common, no matter what kingdoms they are and the differences in the kingdoms. And I think it's just due to the time and the development of the people, like just where the world's at that time. So I feel like no matter where you're going to go, you're going to have some type of prejudice against some group of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, what if the play there is that it seems like everything's good, but then it's not? Like, on the outside, everything looks like, oh, this is nice. Everybody's working together, being real nice. But underneath it, the political mechanism underneath all of that is actually rotten. And so there's still commentary on racism, right? But it's a little bit more veiled, a little bit more, I don't know, difficult to see immediately, but equally as terrible. Any thoughts on that? No? Maybe? Jen?
I mean, it definitely, Witcher comes with political intrigue. That's just a requirement of the game. So I think that there definitely has to be a political enemy on top of maybe a monster or mystical one as well. Mm-hmm. There has to be multiple layers to it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that might be a good place to transition. Do you have a different kind of enemy that you were thinking of?
I do. Definitely along the mystical line. I think that there's a lot more storyline that we can do with Gaunter O'Dim.
Okay. So
being immortal, it doesn't really matter what timeline, when, or where we are in the continent, that he could still play a part.
yeah, that was going to be my next question is like, do you think that this is a continuation after The Witcher 3? Do you think this is taking place in a different place? Do you think this is the same places that we've been, but now a new threat? Like, how does that work out? What would you predict?
Let's see. I don't know what I think that it's going to be a continuation. I really do. I don't think it's going to be a prequel game. It's either going to be a continuation or quite possibly a storyline that is concurrent, but just in another area. So that way, none of the decisions that we made in the Witcher games really matter because it's happening at the same time, just in a different area. So I think that it could still work.
Toasty, what do you think? What do you think about Gaunter?
I mean, that's kind of terrifying because, like,
Right.
if Geralt couldn't beat God, then like, what the heck are people that aren't him supposed to do about it?
I mean, it makes for a good villain. Like, you always want a story where it looks like the good guys are like, I don't know, fighting uphill. I don't know the right phrase for it. Are trying, it's the whole Thanos thing, right? Like, how the heck? I mean, the Avengers are strong, but how the heck are they going to stop Thanos? It feels like an evil that you just can't really compete with. So they're going to have to do something crazy to make this work. Like that's a fun villain to have. Everyone's just nodding. They're like, yeah, we're on an audio platform, but we're all just going to nod. We're just going to nod. What about the rest of you guys? Do you think Gaunter O'Dim is a likely?
I think it's a really cool concept and idea, but I feel like just the way that, especially games kind of like The Witcher goes, Gaunter O'Dim's like that kind of background character. It's like Maik the Liar from Elder Scrolls. It's like that background character that everyone knows and is super popular, but it's one of those things that they're just going to have their little thing over here, and I don't think they're ever going to be like really in the spotlight. Obviously, Gaunter O'Dim's a much more like capable person than Maik, but they could have some type, like he has a bigger storyline and a bigger story to tell to oppose whatever our protagonist is. But I feel like that's just one of those things, especially for the Witcher world and with CD Projekt Red. I don't think that they'd put you toe to toe with the devil for the main story.
I mean, they kind of did it with the Wild Hunt, right? Like, 'cause that's what they were basically known as, whereas it was like demons who came out of the sky, and there was all this like mythology about them. But lo and behold, they're mortals and able to be dealt with. I mean, this seems like a really cool threat. I think Jen's onto a really cool idea here. Ben, what do you think?
I mean, I kind of agree with Crow with this. Like, I don't think they'll use Gaunter as a main antagonist. I mean, yeah, the Wild Hunt was like well known in mythology of like being legends and all that, but Geralt already knew they were mortal because he worked with them.
Right.
I mean, I imagine us seeing Gaunter O'Dim in the next Witcher game. I wouldn't doubt that. At what capacity, though, I don't know.
Yeah. Paul, do you have any thoughts on this? Do you want to chime in?
Sorry, I'm driving.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Do you have any thoughts on Gaunter? Gaunter O'Dim as a...
I'm going to be totally honest, I don't remember who that is.
Yeah, so here, I pulled up the wiki because it's an easier way to just kind of summarize things. So for anybody who doesn't know, Gaunter O'Dim, sometimes called Master Mirror or Man of Glass, was a powerful individual, creating pacts with people in exchange for their souls and being able to control time with a mere clap of his hands. He shows up in the games, right? Like,
yeah, he's the main villain from one of the DLCs, the Hearts of Stone.
From Hearts of Stone, yeah.
Right.
And you meet him in White Orchard at the very beginning of the game too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I thought he showed up in more than one place. Yeah, so I mean, if you're not familiar with him, then you can't really speak on it too much, but I mean, I think that's a fun pull. I'm gonna go with Jen here and say that like that's a really creative pull. Like he hadn't crossed my mind. So, anything else you want to say about him, Jen?
No. I think we're good on it. I think he'd definitely be interesting, and he's an interesting character to interact with. And I would love to, even if he's not the main antagonist, and that we do have another big bad. I mean, I do have one other big bad in mind, but I wanted to start with him.
All right. Well, you want to share it? You want to tell us your other thought?
Oh, my other thought is that there's going to be another not convalescence. What's it called?
Convergence of
Conjunction.
Yes.
Conjunction.
Yeah, conjunction.
Convergence of the spheres. Is that something from somewhere else? Stuff is just squishing together in my brain. Yes, conjunction. Yes.
Yeah, there'd be another conjunction, and that we're going to have to fight through that. And so that's our main antagonist, is a big magic itself being evil and trying to destroy the world. We've got to fight against that.
Yeah, in that case, I have to wonder if the event of that happening is unnatural so soon to the other things, and that having happened recently, that it isn't being manipulated by some powerful force somewhere. And so you end up with, like, that's the big dilemma, but there's a villain underneath who's a person
who is magically manipulating it to happen earlier than what it should be going on.
Right, because they have something to gain from it. Maybe they have a deep-seated hatred of humanity, and they're trying to get rid of the humans by creating a conjunction and throwing them into another plane or something crazy, right? That would be my initial thoughts on how that would work. You guys have any other thoughts on that? What do you think? Would it be fun to go through that?
Have a second conjunction, but Avalok have some role into it.
I mean, he's powerful. He's mysterious and powerful.
At the
character.
end of Witcher 3, when Ciri's goes to destroy the White Frost, we do have a somewhat convergence of the spheres, because monsters are literally portaling in left and right when you're riding up to the tower.
Yeah. I would consider that like a second.
You would have the
convergence.
knowledge.
Yeah, conjunction.
That's actually kind of like part of what my prediction was going to be for.
Oh, interesting. Now we're blending into. This is fun how these ideas just kind of like move from one into the next. That's really cool. Well, go ahead, Jen.
It's because Crow and I share a brain.
Weird. How does that work? Do you just like take time passing it back and forth? You know, like mail it to the other person and then they.
We have shared custody.
I see. Cool. That's weird, but cool. Maybe that's the villain of The Witcher 4. Is the shared brain. It's a new type of monster. So here, tell you what, why don't we move on to Crow next, and we'll get some of Crow's thoughts on this, but we got to thank our patrons, so let's go do that first.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, patrons, thank you so much for supporting us. You guys, those of you who are here, thank you for being here and supporting the show. Thank you to all 16 of our patrons, including our higher vampires, Ben and Vita and Bane. Thank you so much to all three of you for supporting. We really do appreciate it. And I'm pulling this up right now because I was kind of hurrying to get things together. Nope, we don't have any new reviews or ratings, but if you'd like to help us out, leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts would be extremely helpful, and we would really appreciate it because you guys make this work. So thanks for being here. I'm not going to keep you any longer on the middle of the show. Why don't we just move on and talk more about monsters or villains or bad guys or, whatever. Here we go.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
All right, Crow, you're up, buddy. You said you had a similar idea. Tell us about it.
So for my idea, it kind of starts, I think we kind of hit on this idea a little bit back whenever we first got the announcement for the Witcher 4 game with the Link's Medallion. I think that it will kind of start around the time because, sorry, Ben, I think it's going to be a sequel.
Sorry, Ben.
But I do think that it's going to start around the time with like Ciri doing her thing to stop the White Frost. I think that's going to have a much bigger effect than we think it did, where we think it might just be kind of confined to that one area where she's dropping monsters on our head. I think that might have been on a certain scale, another conjunction of the spheres. And so I think that's what's going to lead into the creation of more Witchers since Geralt's story is done. And so maybe it has something to do with, depending on what ending they canonize, which I would think they would go with Ciri being the Empress of Nilfgaard. And so I think, I don't know, I mean, they'll probably come up with something. Right now, I don't believe that they would have a specific person versus person kind of dilemma or fight. I think it's going to be more of person versus world and then person versus people. Because the thing is, we get a little bit of the Witcher prejudice and like the other video games, obviously, and it might be a bar fight here, just like a spit there. But besides that, people realize that Geralt's one of the only Witchers still around, and so they kind of need him whenever there's a monster around. But just like with, kind of, drawing a blank on it, with like other products, whenever there's a want and a demand for something, the higher the want and the demand, the more like profitable the product's going to be.
Yeah. So to jump in real quick. So just to kind of sum up what you're saying so far. So what you're saying is the world was running low on monsters. New conjunction happens. A lot more monsters, not enough Witchers. That's the problem.
To start out.
Yeah.
I also think people are going to become more prejudiced and hateful towards the Witchers that you're going to have to kind of deal with as your character, the more Witchers that get made. Because now they're not as rare as a commodity.
Oh, so you think we're going to start with like, hey, the world was in a terrible state. Now there's a lot of Witchers. That's now a problem now too. Because if there's not a balance, and I think so where we're going here, if there's not a balance between the number of Witchers and the number of monsters, like if there's too many of either of those things, that creates a problem. Not enough monsters, obviously a problem. Or not enough Witchers, too many monsters, obviously a problem. Too many Witchers with not enough to do, and now you have these super powerful people who live very long lives walking around doing whatever they want or doing whatever they need to in order to get by without enough monsters to kill. That becomes a dilemma as well, right?
Well, and even if they get to that point, like I'm still kind of thinking about maybe before that point where they've started making the Witchers, but there's also still plenty of monsters. But it's just like, I mean, we had a storm recently that messed up our house. So we have like 6 different roofing companies come out to our house and trying to do inspections and stuff. And so it's like that. You can't be as like, can't haggle as much as a Witcher if the person that needs a Kikimora killed knows that there's 4 other Witchers.
Too much competition.
From. And so, yeah, there's still just not as much of a need for you as there would be with Geralt being one of the only Witchers around.
Right.
So even though he was kind of treated like trash a lot of the times, could be a lot worse whenever there's more Witchers around.
Right. Yeah, that's a cool point. Toasty, do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, there is precedence to this. I mean, whenever the world starts running low on monsters, people start to look to the Witchers as the monsters and start massacring Witcher schools. So
yeah, but what happens when there's like a proliferation of both? I don't think we've ever seen that. Like lots of monsters, but also lots of Witchers. That seems like a really scary situation to live in with all the monsters around. Like we're going back to a time of, just after the first conjunction where the world was more dangerous.
Yeah.
That's an really interesting idea. What about the rest of you guys? Do you have any thoughts on this? Do you think this is a likely scenario? Everybody's gears are turning. No? Yes? Jen?
I mean, I definitely think that we're going to be seeing a lot more Witchers. I mean, you can't have a new school and have it only be 2 people. I think there's definitely going to be a lot more Witchers in whatever time frame we're playing in.
Do you think there will be more monsters, though? Do you think we're going to have like a resurgence of monsters in the continent?
I think so. I agree with Crow that I think that there is more to the White Frost than what we saw. We don't know if, maybe monsters went the other way down the hill and we didn't see them.
Do you think we'll get never before seen monsters, like new monsters, not just to us, but to the continent, like creatures that Witchers haven't fought or dealt with, and they're going, what is this thing? We need to study this. We need to figure this out. And therefore, the monsters are now more dangerous to them again?
Yeah, definitely. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Paul, do you have any thoughts on any of this? I don't want to leave you out. I know you're driving, but if you're able to chime in, I'd love to get your thoughts.
I really didn't have. I actually do think that would probably be the most likely thing. If there's a second or third conjunction of spheres, they're going to need more Witchers. And then, like you were saying, if there's not enough monsters, then people are going to try to do a genocide again on the Witchers. Kind of like humans have a tendency to do throughout all of history. So,
yeah, it makes sense. Crow, this is a cool idea. Any last words on it? I think we've covered it pretty well, but any other final thoughts? No, shaking of the head.
Actually, one last little thought that I thought about having Syria as Empress. I feel like Nilfgaard won't be as antagonistic with the Northern Kingdoms with her, but there might be like factions that are kind of working against her. But then also with her connection to Geralt with this new Witcher school, maybe she's a supporter of it, and that also gets her a lot of hate. The more that people start to get prejudiced and hate Witchers even more.
That does create a really interesting dilemma when you bring that up. The idea that like Ciri running an empire would probably handle it very differently than Amir did. Are they going to be less aggressive? What about these difficult calls? What about her relationship with Witchers? Is she the one that institutes the call for more Witchers and the creation of a Lynx school in order to fight off the monsters that have poured into the world that she's got, villages all over the empire complaining about? Like, how does that play into it? That seems like a really cool perspective that I think is very likely. What do you think, Toasty?
Just because considering that, like, in kind of the established like lore that there is supposed to be a second conjunction between 1270s and 1370s, including like, and a lot of things happen during that, like the elves supposedly like hop off world, so there's no longer any elves in the world, kind of thing. So having another conjunction just, I think, pretty good guess.
What if the conjunction isn't just a thing that happens at a point in time? What if it's a setup that occurs and opens portals over a period of time? So instead of like, 12:30 on Tuesday, the 32nd of the month, or that's a ridiculous time period because that doesn't happen. But what if on this day at this time, boom, conjunction happens. It lasted for 2 hours and then it was over. And like, that's typically how I think of that as like it happens for like a day or something, right? Boom, 24 hours is done. But what if it's a state that their universe is in for 50, 100 years? And over that time, things happen. All of a sudden, portals pop up or whatever, and creatures fall into the world, or humans and elves can transition through portals more easily, or maybe it's a state where magic is heightened, and that's why these things can traverse, and it stays that way for a very long period of time. Rather than just like a boom, like an explosion, it's a kind of a resonance of those two things with each other that creates just a different way that the world works. Maybe that plays into it too. I don't know. Paul, you got a minute to chime in? You have thoughts on who you think the villain will be for The Witcher 4? I know you're still driving. I don't know if you're able. Oh, there you are. I see you unmuted. Hey,
not really.
No thoughts. What were some of your favorite villains previously? Like if you were to see some of them take like Like, this villain was cool. If they could do something like this again, that would be really cool.
Son of a bitch.
Like, did you like the Wild Hunt?
A little bit later.
Yeah,
I love the Wild Hunt because it's a very Nordic thing to me, so it resonated with me the most.
Okay, so like the idea of pulling from some other Nordic mythology and kind of making it work in the Witcher world could be a really
or
cool
Slavic
idea.
Or Germanic or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, you could pull in concepts of like Ragnarok. You could pull in concepts of different kinds of demons or giants or massive monsters.
By the way, for the magic thing, what I feel like you're trying to sort of kind of describe is like a solar eclipse in a way.
Yeah. So the solar eclipse happens over a period of time. It's not just there for like 1 minute and then it's gone.
It happens for like what, 5 hours, 6 hours?
Right. Now imagine that takes place over 50 years and maybe the magic and the disturbance heightens over time and then fades away, but it's a very slow process. I don't know. I haven't really previously thought about this. It just kind of occurred to me. So I don't know.
That thought actually kind of made me think of like the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, where they're opening up the gates and everything and dropping in the Daedra. That's kind of what it reminded me of. Right. It
didn't just all happen at the same time in one day. It was a period of time where the gates were starting to open in different places, and some of them stayed open longer than others. There's variation on that. I also think that, like, we know that the magic comes from the conjunction, right? That's kind of what brought magic into the world, or I don't know, empowered it or whatever. If a conjunction is in the process of happening, then wouldn't all magic be heightened? Wouldn't that make sense? So now what happens to the regular person's perspective on sorcerers or magic users in general? Are they more fearful of them because they're now even more powerful? Do regular people all of a sudden start exhibiting abilities that weren't there before? It could create all sorts of different things.
So actually, I was kind of thinking about that. Could also be one of the reasons why they're able to start making Witchers again, because of the new magic and stuff that's introduced. So maybe they can either make a new formula or a variation of it. Plus, again, going back to the whole person versus world thing, there could be factions of mages that like could be like a mage civil war kind of thing, where there's the ones that know the need for the Witchers and then the other ones that still hate them and cling on to their hate.
Right.
And so mage on mage violence.
Yeah. Well, you kind of brought a new idea into my head too. So here's one. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. What if a second conjunction happens and we know that Witchers aren't loved where they come from? What if on some other world there are too many Witchers and not enough monsters? Or the monsters from that world are fleeing into the continent, the world of the continent, and Witchers from another world show up? What if we get otherworldly Witchers on the continent? And then the opportunity there is some of them work well with the, fitting in with this new world. Maybe they sign up and work with other Witcher groups that they meet. Maybe some of them are all about like, nah, you guys are foreign, where I'm sticking with my own group. And the villains are actually other Witchers, like another school of Witchers that came from another world. Anybody have any thoughts on that one? Toasty's like squinting his eyes.
Blowingly. That'd be awesome. But
I don't know that it's likely.
Witchers?
Yeah. But like, what if they were the solution for some other world's monster problem? Like, what if we lose the elves, but we gain Witchers? And what if they're a different breed of Witchers? What if they're able to reproduce? What if they simply have children? What if they're like a race of people? What if that other world perfected the mutagens and were able to create Witchers that could reproduce? And so they solved the monster problems of those worlds, but now they've become the monsters.
Or in that universe, only women could become witchers, and that's how we are all introduced into female witchers.
Yeah. What if the mutagens worked differently and it just doesn't work for men, but it works for women? Totally.
Don't forget about Dragonfly. That's my girl.
Right. Well, other than Dragonfly, right. But yeah, I mean, we would have like this Amazonian kind of thing going on with these like, like badass lady witchers showing up. And what if they're the bad guys? Toasty, you were squinting your eyes. You're like, this is a terrible idea. I hate it.
It just seems like a real stretch. It seems like a stretch. I mean, I don't think like we have to bring in like Amazonian woman witchers from another universe. Like we already know women witchers are a thing.
That's my new band, Amazonian woman witchers from another universe.
Like they're just not as prevalent, but like with like if going on the theory that the Link school is, based off of like the content, like the fan content that's been provided, where it's a combination of the wolf and the school of the wolf, school of the cat. School of the cat has the mutagens that can make women into witchers. So like they can already do that. But like, yeah, just having like, because you have to think that like if you get witchers that are identical, like coming in, like it presents a really weird concept of like some other world that did the exact same thing, which just doesn't seem likely.
Or their equivalent of a witcher. The idea of coming up with a soldier that's able to take on the monsters directly isn't a crazy idea, but that doesn't mean that they have to function exactly like a witcher. Maybe they function more like a battle mage. Maybe they're more like what we in the continent were trying to design. And instead of being, silver sword wielding, sign casting, potion drinkers, they're mages who are just really adept at taking on monsters.
It's just better.
Yeah, they're just better.
The sucky witchers of our universe have to fight the better witchers.
Right. But it creates a villain that's like, what if it's just one of them? That's just like the most badass witcher of that other universe. And now they're on some other plane and they're all about themselves. They don't care about what they do or who they hurt. And they realize that like, man, there's nobody here who can really stop me. So I'm just going to take over.
You want us to fight alternate universe Geralt?
Yeah. Yeah. What if, but it's like not like Geralt at all, right? In fact, it might be more like an alternate universe Yennefer, if you think about it. Like she's a badass mage with all sorts of power. What if you created even more powerful mages that were able to handle the monsters?
Yeah, that's worse. I don't want to fight them.
So I don't know, just off the top of my head, like China, I always want to take ideas a little bit further than like the first step that you come to with things, because a good writer will use something that's possible, but take it in a place that's a little bit unexpected. Right. So I want to kind of push that boundary a little bit. Toasty, did you have any theories about witchers or about not witchers, about villains or witchers?
I mean, I was kind of riding the second conjunction like idea.
Do you think that'll bring in more monsters? Do you think the monsters will be, what's going to be the main problem with that? Like who's the villain that the story is pitted against?
Well, I mean, we know or we're told that like, I think it just presents a weird dynamic. Like if the elves actually like hop off world, kind of thing, or maybe it introduces like races from other like spheres that we haven't seen before. Like who really knows? It's kind of becomes it's a big toss up, because you expect like, new school history to like progress to a point that we haven't seen yet. We can only like speculate on possibly a new location entirely. Like,
what if the elves leave and you just have a bunch of humans left with some other minor groups around them, and Ciri brings in an era of peace and technology continues, and now we get like steampunk Witcher. Everybody's making faces.
I think that I'll pose my theory is that it takes place post Second Conjunction. The elves have hopped off world, and so the biggest, like, I guess, racial target becomes just witchers. Like witchers
they become the elves. Yeah.
Yeah. And now they're having to just basically defend themselves from just the general populace. A lot of events that we've heard about as far as like them massacring witchers and like actually being a part of that.
Yeah, that's difficult because the commoner is kind of a difficult villain to have, right? Like, you don't want everybody to die. Like, these people are just misinformed. You'd rather them, figure out that they can live peacefully together. But that creates a really weird but interesting dilemma.
Just want to recreate the final scene of the movie. Like, that's what it basically becomes.
I mean, it's such a reoccurring process in the Witcher lore of like humans turning on the Witchers, and then like we see it in almost every single Witcher school, sometimes more than once. The tournament, there's always the commoner is always being pitched against the Witcher. So maybe it's not just like generally, but like, go to a new place and there's just a kingdom that just absolutely hates them more than anything else. But like they also have the highest population of monsters. So they're needed, but like, so they're working to like better the kingdom, but also are being targeted by said kingdom because of the prejudice. I don't know.
Yeah. And maybe it's coming down from the top. So the political leaders are sharing misinformation about them and creating racial bigotry and political reasons to hate them. Man, that doesn't sound like the real world at all. Cool, guys. I think we've had some really good ideas. Anybody else have any other last minute ideas to throw out before we get to the end of the show? I think we've covered pretty much everything, but I think we're in consensus here. What's really interesting is after talking with each of you about all of this, it feels like we're kind of moving in a similar direction with these ideas. Like, I wonder, are we going to get the game and be like, hey, we called it? Or are we going to get the game and be like, what? Amazonian witchers from another planet? I'm not sure.
The fact that was even in the prediction wouldn't be a surprise, You'd be like, well, I mean, we thought about the concept. We weren't betting on it, but I guess here it is.
Yeah. What if we get like a tweet from one of the developers that's like, cool idea, guys. We already considered it, but we crossed it off the list. And we're like, cool. All right. Well, thanks for responding with a tweet. Yeah, you never know how much.
It's probably more likely than it actually being in the game.
Yeah, probably. You never know how much like developers and people listen to these shows. It does happen, but if you're listening out there, let us know. Well, guys, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for being here. I love all the ideas, and hope to see you guys again next month. Let's just go back through the list. Ben of Temeria, I know you've got some other stuff going on. What do you want to share?
I am one of the hosts for Holocron Histories, Star Wars Canon versus Legends. We are on the Robots Radio Network. We go over all things Star Wars with the lore between the current canon and the old legends. This Friday, we do have our Patreon episode coming up. So I believe we might be going over like what our best fight scenes are.
Cool.
So
cool.
We'll see.
Everybody loves a good lightsaber battle.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then, as Tom said earlier in the beginning of the episode, I will be joining Toasty next week on this show.
Yeah, man. It's going to be fun.
Super excited for.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I finally got a chance to go take a little bit of time off. My wife and my son took a week off a little while back, but we're going to have time to take a few days and do like a family trip. So thanks for filling in. I hope you guys have an awesome time. And if you do get the episode a little bit late, don't worry. It's still going up. It just, they have to record it. I have to edit it and put it up, but it'll still be up on the audio platforms. So if you're looking for that, that's where it'll be.
We'll be on a boat. So
I will be on a boat with no internet and no computer, so I won't be able to do diddly squat. Crow, thank you for joining us again. Very cool ideas. You got anything going on? Anything you want to share?
Still in school. I'm slacking a little bit, but I'm getting through it. I do have something kind of exciting that I at least want to throw out there. It's not anytime soon, but kind of towards the end of the year, me and my buddy are actually looking to start our own podcast.
Nice.
We're still brainstorming on the name a little bit, but we're thinking of Wasted Legends. So he's huge Mortal Kombat fan. We're both huge like DC fans. I'm obviously into The Witcher as well. So we're just going to tack on some like kind of like stories around a campfire.
Cool.
With some adult beverages.
Nice. Well, there's always the Rocket Club if you're looking to actually officially sign up for something and be part of some of these guys doing their shows. And I'd love to give you lots of help with that if you sign up. Also, I wrote a book about creating video game podcasts, and it's available on robotsradio.net if you go check it out. So both of those things are very helpful if you're looking for other stuff. But if you're just kind of winging it and doing your own thing, good luck to you. That's awesome as well.
Actually, I'm waiting for him. It's a little rough with me being in school, but he's said that he's going to get the equipment and then moving on from there. And I was going to try and work with you a little bit to maybe get a couple of tips and stuff to get us started.
Yeah, shoot me a note. I'll give you some help to get you started. Awesome, fun stuff. Jen, I know you got stuff.
I do have stuff. I'm part of that Rocket Club and have the podcast of Two Girls, One Ship. So you can find me anywhere on there. But I would also say that if the developers are listening to this name, if there is a gorgeous Amazonian women witcher, name her some kind of Jen or Genesis or anything along those lines. And then we will know that it came from this podcast.
Sorry, Jen, they already have one.
No, that's
another one.
Dragonfly.
Another one.
But no, specifically if it's an Amazonian type Witcher woman.
I think that's going to be up to you to make that because it'll be create your own Witcher, right? At least that's what we're expecting.
There are going to be other Witchers in the game, right? You're not going to be the one sole Witcher player character, right?
Yeah, there could be more. I see what you're doing. I get this. I like this idea. And then you just make her sister or somebody in the game. And then yeah, I get you. Very cool idea. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. And then Paul, are you able to chime in?
Yeah.
You got anything you want to share before we head out?
No, I just need to read up on my lore again. I've kind of been slacking.
No problem, dude. Well, thanks for joining us. And of course, thank you for the support. All of you guys. We really appreciate it. Toasty, I hear you have a episode that's finally up for Cyberpunked.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
It happened.
Finally released it. It happened.
Imagine that. That's awesome. Yeah. So if you're looking for podcasts, go check that out. You'll hear Toasty role-playing character. What's your character in that again?
Her name is Mono. She is a Hawaiian nomad lifestyle tech.
Amazonian, right?
Yep. She likes to shoot things with the railgun.
Sweet.
She does look Amazonian. She's 6'9".
There you go. Look at that. That's awesome. Yeah, go check that out.
And I guess I'm technically now a host of one of the hosts of the Holocron Histories.
Official?
Thanks
You're an official host?
Totally. I did an episode that officially makes me a host, does it not?
A one-time host.
One time, I mean, you never know.
Mm-hmm. Well, that means that Ben is going to become a host of our show.
That's fine.
For one time.
Ben's been an honorary host for his time here, let's be honest.
Yeah, he was the first patron. He gets the seat at the table right next to the two of us, right?
Well, luckily for us, Ben will know significantly more details about whatever it is we're going to talk about for the next episode than I will when I was on his. Because we did the Black Sun Crime Syndicate, and I was like, I don't have any clue who the fuck these people are, except that the name sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, you're covering like Mass Effect stuff in Star Wars. That's weird. That's one of those jokes because they both have the same name.
No, those are the blue suns, not black suns.
That is true.
It's close enough.
Blue sun, different color.
Regardless, I don't know about either of those. So
Because they're both crime syndicates. It's the same thing. Come on.
I was just like, wow, this name, it's familiar. It's definitely familiar. I've heard it said
the purple
before.
sun. So cool.
Yeah.
Well, go check that stuff out if you're looking for other shows. If you want other shows that I do or anybody on the network, robotsradio.net has a whole list of them. Just thank you for being here and for listening, everybody. We really do appreciate you just listening to the show and being part of it. And that's it for this week. Thanks for being here, everyone. We're going to sign off, and Toasty and Ben, we'll see you next week on the audio versions. So if you're watching the video, go find a podcatcher somewhere and subscribe for the audio version. See you guys next time. Bye, everyone. Oh, wait. And Toasty.
Stay safe on the path.
I almost forgot.
Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.